What's up, my pilots? Angryponcho here. Today we're going to be ranking all of the Doom Blades that are currently in Magic the Gathering. So, firstly, what is a Doom Blade? Well, here is literal Doom Blade. That gives kind of a template for what this card archetype is. It is a black 2-mana instant that says destroy target creature. It may have other restrictions. It may have upsides or downsides. It may have a slightly different cost, but it is a black 2-mana instant that destroys target creature. And there are a surprising number of versions, uniquely mechanical versions of this effect. But to start with is classic OG Doomblade that kind of sets the bar for everything else to try and meet. And unfortunately, I think this card is just a B. The reason is a 2-mana instant is a good rate. We're happy there. 1 mana will be better, like a Swords to Plowshares, for example, is clearly better, but the other thing that makes Swords better than this is that Swords exiles the creature rather than destroying it. And Doomblade has been in so many formats and so many decks through the years that it really would benefit from more flexibility of being able to exile something. And I will say that the restriction of non-black is not particularly limiting. Most creatures are non-black, and it's a smaller category than you would think, especially considering if you're playing this in, for example, a commander pod, if you have a opponent that's playing lots of black creatures and other opponents who aren't, well, you use your Doomblade on the other player's creatures and use some other removal spell for your opponent's black creature. So we'll start with that on a B tier. Up next, whoops, I'm trying not to scroll this side because I think it's a little sickening, but we'll go here next. Assassin's Blade. So again, 2 mana, and here's the weird part. This says sorcery because it's so old, but the way it's templated, play only after you're attacked, but before you declare interceptors. So this, today, you can't do this because how do you cast a sorcery during the combat step? So this is an instant, and you can only cast it during the declare attacker step before you put blockers in. And then the actual effect is destroy target non-black attacking creature. This is just clearly so much worse. So much worse. The interesting thing is it is the declare attacker step, but it's only if you've been attacked. Now the weird thing is you don't have to destroy a creature that's attacking you. You just have to have something attacking you, and you can destroy a non-black attacking any attacking creature. But still, the fact that it's limited to when you can cast it takes away the fact that it's an instant. It still has the non-black restriction, but now it has to be an attacking creature. This is just terrible. This is just bad. In fact, I'm changing the bottom tier to F. Let's look at the next one. Cradle to Grave. Destroy, so you have an instant, 2 mana, destroy target non-black creature. So far it's a Doomblade. That came into play this turn. Oof. That is truly a big downside. Coming into play this turn means that essentially you have to use this like a counter spell. You have to hold up this 2 mana. You don't get to choose when you're going to kill this spell. You can't untap, kill it in your first main, and attack through. You have to hold this mana up. And that is a huge downside that for a removal spell you just normally don't have to worry about. And that alone drops it to F tier. Who's up next? What in the world is this? Toxic Screech. Let me scroll down here. Toxic Stench, rather. 2 mana instant. Target non-black creature, right, good so far, gets -1/-1 until end of turn. That's not right. Oh, but with Threshold, destroy that creature, it can't be regenerated. Okay. The it can't be regenerated text adds almost nothing. The fact that Threshold is 7 cards makes it so that it's not online on turn 2, basically ever. So having this as a good removal spell in a limited format or just early in a multiplayer game is just truly bad. I suppose it does have -1 as the backup mode, so maybe you could use it for killing your opponent's Birds of Paradise on turn 2, but there are so many other better spells that can do that this one also just drops straight to F tier. But don't worry, there's some hope on the horizon. Up next is Go for the Throat. And this, I think, is our first card that's better than a Doomblade. 2 mana black instant, destroy target creature, but it must be a non-artifact creature. Artifact creatures, I think, make up a smaller percentage of played creatures than black creatures do. Because when you take into account multicolored creatures, a creature that's green and black, Doomblade can't hit. White and black, Doomblade can't hit. But artifacts tend to be in their own niche, and you don't really get, with rare exceptions, you don't really get multicolored artifacts. So it's not like a creature is going to be an artifact and green very much of the time. It does happen, but not much. So I think the non-artifact clause is a lot smaller than non-black, and that makes the card just a hair better than Doomblade. We'll put it up in A tier. And of course, we got the combination of the two. Terror. Destroy target non-artifact and non-black creature. It can't be regenerated. Again, the it can't be regenerated is adding almost nothing. Non-artifact and non-black. It's still okay. It's still playable. It has some sick art on the original printing, if I remember correctly. Yeah. I mean, it's had... Let's scroll way back. Was this from Alpha? I think it was, yeah. And it's just a guy freaking out. I think there's wasn't there a full art version? Yeah. Done in the same style. So it's got that kind of classic appeal to it, but honestly, just not a very good card. Too many restrictions. Non-artifact and non-black. I will say this art is horrific. The skin, musculature, and skeleton eating each other in an Ouroboros, like holy shit. I mean, I'm tempted to put it in B tier just for how good that art is, but let's stay focused on the mechanics. Up next, Cast Down. Destroy target non-legendary creature. Okay, new restriction. Non-legendary. How good is that? I'm going to argue that's not good for 2 reasons. One, this card was originally printed in Dominaria, which was a set built around legends. There were a ton of uncommon legends in this set, so it's worse than usual in its own limited environment. And it's worse than usual in the only other format you might see it played, which is Commander, because everyone has a legendary creature, and a lot of people's decks are built around a legendary creature. So this card just doesn't do it. It's not useless like Toxic Stench, but it's just not a very good removal spell. And now we'll look at Hero's Demise. Kind of the opposite of Cast Down. Destroy target legendary creature. Now again, this comes from a set. I think that's Betrayers of Kamigawa. Is that right? Yeah, Bach. This comes from a set that had a lot of legendary creatures, just like Cast Down. Except this is leaning into that and is hating on that set mechanic. And I think this card pulls up into the B tier. It's not as good as a Doomblade, but the fact that it can hit somebody's Commander and Commander, and the fact that it's playable in its own limited format, together, this does a really good impression of Doomblade. Up next, Malicious Affliction. Another card with some set mechanic on it. This is also our first one that has a black casting cost, which is a notable downside. The fact that it's double pipped means it's a lot harder to splash in a multicolored deck, and it's a lot harder to play on turn 2 in those decks as well. This one in particular is not very good early because it has a morbid trigger. When you cast the spell if a creature died this turn, you can copy it and choose a new target for the copy. So, ooh, we have an upside. But the actual card text is just Doomblade, destroy target non-black creature. The fact that this has an upside, and the fact that that upside is so good, essentially doubling the effect of the card, I think brings this up to nearly on par with Doomblade. The fact that it still has that non-black restriction kind of kills it for me. If it just said destroy target creature and it was black with the morbid trigger, this would be an A tier card. But the fact that it's still holding on to that Doomblade restriction on color, it doesn't quite get there for me. I do like this in Commander Pod. If you're playing mono black, for example, because it's really easy for you to kill a creature and then trigger this and kill two more things. Or you can just wait and let someone else trigger Morbid for you. Up next, Heartless Act. This is actually a modal spell. 2 modes, 2 black instant. Destroy target creature with no counters on it of any type. That's +1 counters, death touch counters, whatever. Or remove up to 3 counters from target creature. I really like this card. I think this is up there, maybe even better than Go for the Throat, for 2 reasons. 1, destroying a creature with no counters on it is almost just destroy target creature. Most creatures don't enter with counters on them. So if you can get in there, within a turn or two, the creature is unlikely to have a counter, and this just reads as destroy target creature. Counterpoint, or really the point 2 of the same argument, the second mode kills a lot of creatures that want to enter with counters. There's a lot of 0 toughness creatures, often 0 power, 0 toughness creatures that enter with some number of +1 counters on them. Think of some Hydras. Think of Walking Ballista. Taking the counters off of those creatures kills them. So this has some situations where it doesn't work. Like someone plays a Rishkar and puts the counter on their own Rishkar, and now it's protected. But in most other cases, it can kill creatures with counters or without counters. Very nice. Easy Prey up next. 2 mana instant, destroy target creature with converted mana cost 2 or less. That's a downside for sure, but it also has the upside. Cycling of 2. Cycling makes every card go up a tier, in my opinion. Like, when the card has the second mode of pay 2, discard a card, draw a card, it lets you overlook a lot of other stuff pretty quickly. The fact that the target creature is not limited by colors or types, and instead by cost, makes this card look more like a Fatal Push than a Doomblade. But Fatal Push is a really good card in Limited, and it can be surprisingly good in Commander, because think about it. No matter how big a token is, it could be a 5/5 elemental from Omnath. It still has a mana value of 0. Unless it's one of the weird tokens from Bloomburrow, but beside the point. And then when the card's not good, you can cycle it. And it's hard to put that below A tier. And of course it does still kill Manowar Elves. And all those other good little mana dorks that you want to get rid of on turn 2 in 1v1. Smother. 2 mana instant. Destroy target creature with mana value 3 or less. It can't be regenerated. You see how this whole category of cards is just a grab bag of restrictions, upsides and downsides? So it can't be regenerated. Again, it adds very little to the value of the card. Destroy target creature with mana value 3 or less. This feels a lot more like a restriction than the other card, because this card doesn't have the cycling mode. So when you want to get rid of a big creature, this card is just stone dead. 3 or less is a pretty substantial range, but I don't think I can put this card above low B tier, just because when it's not online, it's really just doing nothing. Now Eliminate is next. Let's see here. So this is a very similar card. Destroy target creature or planeswalker with mana value 3 or less. Now that's a sneakily small upside. There's a pretty short list of 3 mana or less planeswalkers, but some of them are really good. Notably Narset, the one that hates on card draw, I forget the full name. And then you have the 3 mana Teferi that is just gross. Granted, for that one, you'd have to cast this as a sorcery, but still. The flexibility of hitting a creature or a planeswalker is a much bigger upside than not regenerating, for example. And I think that this probably puts it up near Doomblade in B tier. Next is Long Goodbye. 2 mana. This spell can't be countered, and then it has the same text as Eliminate. Destroy target creature or planeswalker with mana value 3 or less. Can't be countered is a pretty strong thing, and I would hesitate to say You might look at this and say, "Ugh, this is still just a weird Doomblade." I would not. I would think this is more like a weird abrupt decay. It misses artifacts and enchantments, but hitting creatures or planeswalkers with 3 or less mana value uncounterably is still pretty good. And I think this puts it above Doomblade in B tier. The fact that it's any small creature, any small planeswalker, so you're not limited by color or type, just by mana value, and then not being counterable is that extra little push to put it near the top of B tier. Feast of Dreams is our next card. 2 mana instant. Destroy target enchanted creature or enchantment creature. Kudos to Black. This was their first attempt at destroying enchantments. Because if you destroy an enchanted creature, the auras that are attached to it will fall off. And if you destroy a creature that is an enchantment, hey, you got enchantment removal in mono black. Kind of. Not really. This card is kind of pretending to be a lot better than it is. But the restriction of enchanted creatures, first off, if someone's putting auras on their creature, they probably have other spells to protect it. This is not likely to resolve. They're either going to give it hexproof, or they're going to counter you, or they just don't care. Like it's a bestow creature. It's going to come back. The aura will turn into a creature, you know? And then enchantment creatures, that is a really small niche. I think in the limited format of Journey into Nyx, that was a slightly bigger niche. But even then, not a great card. We'll put this near the bottom of C tier. Noxious Grasp is next. This is part of the color hate cycle from M20. 2 mana instant, destroy target creature or planeswalker that's green or white. You gain 1 life. Boy, that you gain 1 life really feels like just tacked on at the end, doesn't it? Like, what does that have to do with this at all? But anyhow, destroy target creature or planeswalker. No limit on mana value. Now we're limiting on color, and we have 2 options, green or white. I would say, unfortunately, this is way too limiting. Having to be 1 color rather than not be 1 color is clearly way, way worse. Having to be 1 of 2 colors instead of, say, non-black is still substantially worse, in my opinion, because most creatures are non-black. With that same token, most creatures are non-green or non-white, so most things aren't a target for this. The same goes for planeswalkers. This is a killer sideboard card in 1v1. If you're drafting, it's totally fine to pick this up in the sideboard because it becomes unrestricted removal against some opponents if they're playing mono green or a heavily white-red deck, that kind of thing. But on the face of it, it's just too limited. I think it's better than just destroying enchantments. It's better than destroying... it's not as good as Cast Down, I don't think, actually. Soul Rend is up next. An even worse version, or is it? 2 mana instant, destroy target creature if it's white. Now that's a really weird way of writing it. It's not like Noxious Grasp that just says destroy target white creature. It says destroy target creature if it's white. So you can still target something that isn't white. It just won't be destroyed. And that has some relevance for this card, because as we continue, creature destroyed this way can't be regenerated. Again, that adds almost nothing. But the second part, draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. This is the weird old magic form of like cantripping on spells. You would draw the card at the next upkeep. This is the thing about like Arcane Denial. I think it's the only spell from this style of templating that still sees any play. So here's the secret mode, right? Obviously you can destroy a white creature. Or you can target any creature, it won't be destroyed, and you just draw a card. So this is the weirdest version of slow cycling I've ever seen. The funny thing is, this is sort of the opposite of Easy Prey, whereas with Easy Prey you think, okay, most of the time I'm going to cast this and destroy a little creature. Sometimes I'll cycle it if it's dead. With this card, it's like cycling is the main mode. This is 2 mana, this is 1 and a black for an instant that says draw a card at the beginning of the next upkeep. Also, you can't cast this spell if there's no creatures in play. The destroy target creature if it's white is so narrow. I don't think we can put this card above the bottom of C tier. That ability to cycle itself is fine, but when that's the main mode, the card is just really failing to be a Doomblade. Up next, Ultimate Price Instant. Destroy target monocolored creature. Now, it really depends on what format you're in for how good this is. I will say that as this card was, I believe, originally from Return to Ravnica, it's kind of terrible in that limited format. a set notably built around guilds. People are going to be playing a higher number of multicolored creatures than a normal, so it really fails there. But in the wider Magic world, particularly in like Commander or something, this is a pretty decent unrestricted card because most creatures in most decks in general are going to be monocolored. I mean, think about any token. Almost all tokens are one color. A great majority of creatures are just one color. The problem with this is it has a secret hidden mode on it, which is it cannot destroy an artifact creature if that artifact creature doesn't have a color. So think of like Solemn Simulacrum. Obviously, you're not going to want to kill somebody's Sad Robot, but beside the point, this card can't target Sad Robot because Sad Robot is non-colored. It's not monocolored. So this is actually destroy target non-artifact unless it's a colored artifact, which there aren't very many of. And it also has to be only one color, exactly. And when you put the two of those together, the card just like really falls off. I'm thinking probably worse than Feast of Dreams. Devour in Shadow. This is a card that I was not familiar with prior to making this list, but this is our next card up that has black in the cost. Destroy target creature, it can't be regenerated. You lose life equal to the creature's toughness. Now that's quite interesting to me. So unrestricted targeting, any creature, destroy it. It can't be regenerated. Okay, don't really care. You lose life equal to its toughness. So you're incentivized to use this on a smaller creature, but the fact that it's the toughness really makes it more likely that you're going to want to put this onto a creature that's got an aggressive slant. Use this on your opponent's Flame Tongue Kavu to get rid of their 4/2. Well, you only lose 2 life instead of the 4 that they would have done if they'd hit you with it. The problem is this really doesn't scale well. If you want to get rid of somebody's, let's say, what's the Hydra that spell Managorger Hydra that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Another great card to kill with Heartless Act, by the way. You lose life equal to the toughness. If that thing's at 20/20, this spell just becomes uncastable. And that really slows it down. I think it ends up probably being worse than Ultimate Price. Let's look at Infernal Grasp next. A relatively new spell, if I'm remembering correctly. When was this first printed? Innistrad Midnight Hunt. Yeah. So 2021? 22? 2021, yeah. Just 2 mana instant. Destroy target creature. You lose 2 life. This is so much better than Devour in Shadow. It doesn't have the regeneration text, but again, who cares? Only and always losing 2 life is way better. Like I'm even fine using this on a Birds of Paradise. That 2 life is going to be a lot less impactful than them having an extra mana. Or if I'm destroying a giant monster, only losing 2 life instead of letting that giant monster attack me, freaking awesome. This is an S tier card. This is our best one yet. It's particularly good in Commander, where that 2 life means almost nothing. I gotta scroll all the way back here. Feed the Circle is next. Now for this one, I have to put a little asterisk on because it has additional costs. And one of them is paying a black. I'm not even going to consider that as an option because that makes this a 3 mana spell and it's not a Doomblade anymore. So we're just going to pretend this card says 2 mana instant as an additional cost to cast this spell, Forage. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. Interesting. Any creature, any planeswalker. No colors, no CMC limits. But the additional cost is you have to forage. So foraging, you have two options. Either sacrifice a food token, which in the Bloomborough limited format are really easy to get. So it's a very small cost. Or, in general, you can just exile 3 cards from your graveyard. So unlike that earlier spell, which required Threshold, getting 3 cards in your graveyard is a lot easier. And the upside of this hitting Planeswalkers, in addition to having it no restrictions on the colors or types or costs, and technically, if you're not just looking for a Doomblade and you don't mind paying 3, you could just pay 3. So the flexibility is huge on this. It goes straight to the top of A tier. Now, granted, this is a Doomblade tier list, so even an A tier Doomblade is probably not a great card in a general commander deck. You can just shift everything down 2 tiers if you're looking at actual removal spells, but we're talking about Doomblades today. Bitter Triumph, another card with an additional cost. For this one, it's either discard a card or pay 3 life. Discarding a card is a terrible, terrible thing. When it's stapled to a draw spell, like, oh, I'm going to discard a card and I'm going to draw 2 cards. You know, it's like I went card neutral. It's fine. When you're casting a removal spell, having to discard a card as an additional cost is awful. That is such a terrible 2-for-1. Not only are you playing reactively, you're going down on resources. So I'm not even going to consider that mode. It's just so bad, it's almost never worth doing. So the real cost is pay 3 life. And in that case, the card suddenly looks a lot more like Infernal Grasp up in S tier. Destroy target creature, you lose 2 life. This is destroy target creature or planeswalker, you lose 3 life. That's really good. Don't ever discard a card to this spell. Pay the 3 life. You'll be fine. But 2-mana instant that destroys any planeswalker at the cost of 3 life? Hell yeah. This is power creep in action, folks. This card was printed back in 2023. You see the newer ones are a lot stronger. Another relatively new card with a very old name. And the first of a new category, Power Word Kill. This is our first of caring about what creature type the target is. 2-mana instant, destroy target, non-angel, non-demon, non-devil, non-dragon creature. So anything that isn't an angel, demon, devil, or dragon. So I will say, in this card's limited format, not the best. A lot of the bombs are these types. Dragons and angels especially. So pretty bad there. The non-demon and non-devil, probably less relevant. I really just... I think that this is hitting on too many good cards. Like, this is yet another Doomblade that can't destroy Platinum Angel. Because it can't destroy an angel, which I think is funny. I didn't mention that, but that's one downside of Go for the Throat. You can't destroy Platinum Angel. It's very niche, but funny to think of. Not destroying dragons is even worse, in my mind, because dragons are like the perfect target for a cheap destroy that thing removal spell. They're usually a big threatening creature, and one that you would love to answer for 2 mana. So I don't think I can put Power Word Kill above, like... Oh, it's like a toss-up whether this is terrible, better than Terror. It's down in C tier for sure. Next in this sort of cycle, Shoot the Sheriff, 2-mana instant. Destroy target non-outlaw. So this was another one limited on types. You can't target assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks. Which, one of the main complaints with outlaws, and I agree with it, is what a random collection of types. Like, okay, sure. Assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks. So again, not great in its own limited environment because that set was built around having outlaws and doing crimes with them. In the more general sense, I don't think this is going to see play anywhere other than Commander. And in Commander, 5 creature types is a lot to just randomly miss. Like, obviously you miss on all of the Assassin's Creed cards because they're all assassins. Mercenaries is a pretty small category, mostly consisting of old bad cards. So that doesn't matter. Rogues is a much bigger and much better category. There's some warlocks, particularly like Prosper, that you'd want to kill. Pirates also is a mixed bag. I'm going to say overall, as long as nobody in your play group is playing Assassin's Creed, this is probably a C tier card. It's worse than Doomblade, or B tier card rather. It's quite a bit worse than Doomblade. Maybe better than Malicious Affliction. And our final card, one of my favorite spells, Victim of Night. Destroy target, only 3 types this time. Non-vampire, non-werewolf, non-zombie. And it's like, okay. So this is from original Innistrad, I believe. Yep. And in that set, this is 3 of the 5 creature types. The others being, well, I guess there's 6. 'Cause humans are in every color. But then you have angels and spirits. So really in this set, this reads more like destroy target human, angel, or spirit. And that's pretty flexible. The problem is a lot of the humans in that set were human werewolves on one side and wolf werewolves on the other. Zombies not being targetable is a bigger miss in Commander because there's a lot of cards that are like relatively played that just randomly happen to be zombies. Non-vampire is not a big hit unless you just really hate Edgar Markov decks. I'm going to say overall that the werewolf part doesn't matter at all for Commander because werewolves are terrible. If you have one opponent that's playing werewolves and one opponent that's playing anything else, you're going to be targeting your removal at the non-werewolf player anyway, so this doesn't matter. Non-zombie is the only one that will just randomly get you sometimes. But I think overall this ends up in A tier. I think it's better than a Doomblade if you're playing a deck that's only black or maybe black and one other color. And yeah, maybe I have to move it down to B tier because of that. That double pip cost is just a lot to ask. So there you have it, folks. My tier list for Doomblades. Tell me what I got wrong down in the comments. Everybody's got opinions on this type of stuff, and boy, it really does make you notice, like, hey, all these cards in the top tiers are from the last, like, 3 years. That's kind of weird, right? And all these cards down here are old. Thanks for watching, y'all. See you next time.